So in the last episode we finally started creating our application and we created this drop-down box right here in which we are getting some locations. But that doesn't work quite right, because if we go to our code we can see that we are hard coding the data into our component, and we of course want to avoid that at all cost. So in this episode we are going to create a locations API, connect to it, and then display this data in this component dynamically. So first of all, we are going to go into our October CMS's backend, go to the builder. You can choose a plugin right here, which is called Vue Rent a Car for us. And now we are going to add another table to our database, which is going to be called locations. And locations are going to have an ID, which is going to be integer, auto incrementing, and primary key. And another one is going to be title. So the title of our location, which is going to be a string. And we are going to have another one, which is going to be slug, just if we need it for some reason in the future. Okay, save this. Great, save and apply. Next thing, we need to create a model. Just go right here and create a model which is going to be called location. And it's going to be using the locations table. Click OK. And we need to create some forms for our model. So the first one is going to be a text field, which is going to be called location name. Actually, that is going to be our label. And the field name is title actually. Okay. Next one is going to be slug. And we are going to set some advanced options for it. It's going to use a preset, which is going to use the field of title, and the type of preset is going to be slug, so that we get our slugs automatically as we write the title. Okay, save this, and now we have our forms. Let's create a list. So the list is just going to be title, and the label is going to be location name. The type is text and is going to be searchable and sortable. Save this. Okay, let's go to backend menu. I already created this locations sub menu right here, but I'm just going to delete it and add another one. So the menu item is going to be have a label of locations. We are going to use icon home. Okay, so we are going to use that icon for it, and we are going to set the URL a little bit later. Save this. Next thing, we are going to go to controllers and create a locations controller. It's going to use the model of location, and the menu item is going to be locations. Also, we are going to set list controller behavior and form controller behavior. Click OK. Save this. And now we go to our backend menu, click on locations, and in the URL just start writing locations, and you get this link right here. Great. Save this. Let's just refresh our page, because we need to do that sometimes. Go to vehicles. And as you can see, we have location sub menu right here. If I click on it, you can see that we don't have any locations just yet. So let's create some. So New York. As you can see, the slug is automatically filling up. Create it. Let's create another one. Okay. So we created our locations right here. Next thing we need to do, we need to expose them to our API. Now in our API part of the application, so API, plugins, watch learn, Vue Rent a Car, routes.php, we created a route for our vehicles in one of the previous episodes. So right now we are going to create a route or endpoint for our locations. And I'm just going to copy this, paste it in, and use location. Next thing, I'm just going to copy this, paste it right here, because it's going to be pretty much the same code. So locations, and I'm just going to change the model right here to location, right? So we should be getting our endpoint right now, and we can test it out. If we go to our browser, I'm currently on API Vue Rent-A-Car localhost vehicles, so these are our vehicles, and now we want to see our locations. So these are our locations. As you can see, we are getting ID, title and slug for each of our locations. Okay, now the next thing we need to do, we need to take that data into our Vue application, and we are going to be doing that right now. Of course, we are going to set our locations in our store so that we can access them anywhere, just like I described in the Vuex video. So locations, we want to define them right here, and we are of course expecting an array, and I'm just going to copy this. So it's going to be pretty much the same code. So all locations, and the state is going to be locations, right? Now our mutation is going to be called get locations. Okay, great. Next thing, we need an action, and we need a comma right here. So we need an action which is going to be get or get locations. And of course we are going to access the endpoint called locations. And the commit is going to start a mutation called get locations. And I think that's about it, except I of course misspelled this wrong. That could be a problem in the future. Okay, save this. Now we got our store settled. I'm also missing a comma right here. Sorry about that. Okay, so now this file looks clean. Next thing we want to do, we want to go into our app.vue file, and we want to import those locations right here. Actually not import, but we want to dispatch an action when our application is mounted, because app.vue is our whole application. So once the application is mounted, we want to dispatch an action which is going to get all of our locations. So to do that, I'm just going to go into this app.vue file, and right here I'm going to create a new method called mounted. Okay, and I'm just going to go this store dispatch, and we wanna dispatch the action which is called get locations. Now every time our application starts up, it's going to automatically get all of those locations. Now we want to get those locations into reservation form.vue file or Vue component, and we of course are going to get that by using computed. So computed property, which is going to be locations, and we just return this store that getters all locations. So we are accessing our locations that way. To see if we are getting our locations properly, we can just open up Vue DevTools, and you can click on this Vuex tab, and you get your base state. Our current base state is locations with an array of 3 objects. So these are our locations. Great. So we are getting them. They're in our Vuex. We just need to access them. And as you can see, vehicles array is empty because we have a dispatch action in our list of vehicles component, if I remember correctly, and this component hasn't been imported anywhere on our page, so we are currently getting 0 vehicles. But in the future we are probably going to put it into the app.vue file, just like we did for the locations, so that we always have access to our vehicles. Now you would think that we should just delete all of this, put locations in, and we are done. Well, in the perfect world that would be true, but if we go to our browser, as you can see, we are not getting anything right now. we are actually getting something. We are getting 3 choices right here, but we don't have the values or labels for them. Why is that? Well, because if we go to our input select.vue, you can see that we are expecting value and label fields right here, but we are not getting those. We are actually getting, if we check out our Vuex state, we are getting an ID, slug, and the title. So we created some errors in our steps, and now we are going to correct those errors by going to our API and changing things a little bit there. So there are a few options for dealing with this kind of problems. One of those would be to just go to your store, and once you get the data from your API, you can just transform that data and name the fields in your objects the way you want, and then display them on the page. The second one is what we are going to do right here. We are just going to correct this on the API level. So we are going to create a new route. We are going to leave this route because sometime in the future we may need the locations like we are getting them from the API right now. So I'm just going to create another route, and I'm going to call it locations/list. So this is going to be just a filtered list of our locations. Okay, and we'll need these locations right here, and we are going to be returning locations, but here in the middle we are going to do something with those locations. So when somebody accesses our endpoint, we are going to get all locations, then we are going to take them and transform them in the form that we need them. So I'm just going to do for each locations as location. So this is pure Laravel type of code. Now I'm just going to say location label, because we need a label. So we are going to create a new field in our object called a label, and that label is going to be equal to location title. Okay. Next thing, we want pretty much the same thing, but we are going to add a new field called value. So this is the field that we need in our input select.vue file. We are going to call it value, and it's going to be same as our ID. So remember, the value for our locations are going to be the IDs of those locations. And then there's just one more thing to do. We want to unset the fields title and ID and the slug, because we don't need those. So we want to unset the title, ID and the slug. And I think that's about it. If we save this, go to our browser, now go to our API and do locations/list. We are now getting this. I probably did something wrong. The unset did. Oh, I know. This should be location, not locations. Okay, save it, check it out in the browser. Okay, now we are getting just a label and a value for our location. Now in our store.js file, we can create a new state called location list, then new getter, then new mutations and new actions for our list. But we are not going to do all of that. We are just going to actually change the route right here. And in the future, if we really need the locations like we are getting them from the locations endpoint, then we are going to add a new mutator, new action, new getter, and so on. But for now, we are just going to change this to list, save it, and this should then work, hopefully. And as you can see, we are getting New York, Paris, and Peckham from our Vuex state or our store. And if you check it out right here, you see that our object looks differently right now. So we are now just getting the location label and the value for our location object. Okay, so this is it for this video. Remember, everything we did here will be available for you on GitHub, the link will be in the description below. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.